Hey there coding fans, Mr. Baumgarten back at you again with another Pygame video in our series here. This is video number 2, and today we are going to make our little moving rectangle that we had on screen and replace it with an animated sprite, make our player come alive more than a purple rectangle does. For today's purposes, I am going to use the art that has been freely provided by Kenny, and he has done a great service to game artists everywhere by making this graphics set completely free for use. And so I'm using within it his little blue player animations that he has inside there. So download his set. He's got walls and platforms and keys. This is only about 10% of what he's got there. I've only grabbed the bits that I'm going to be using, but he's got plenty more there. So as a getting started point, it is highly recommended. The other option is, of course, to use the Pygame website. Pygame, I can never remember how it's spelled. There it is there. If you want to create your own artwork, feel free, go right ahead, create a sprite, a series of sprites, and then export them all so that it can use the same code that I'm about to demonstrate. I would suggest that you export it as you want the single frames, so I suggest you export it as a zip and then unzip it and give yourself the individual frame. So each frame should be a separate picture. And the way this works is you can see here for walk, right? There's walk 01, walk 02, walk 03, and so each of these is a different step, a different part of the walk. So if I was to arrow through them, you can see we get the walking motion. So that's how we are going to create our animations. So there's 3 parts to today's video. Part 1, we are going to replace our rectangle with a sprite, with a picture. Part 2 is we're going to make it animated so that it has that running motion effect rather than just being a stationary picture. And then part 3, we're going to look at how can we actually have different animations happening for different actions. There's no point having the running right motion animation happening if we are moving to the left. So those are the 3 different parts that we are going to get to in today's video. So let's close my program down and take a look in my code. So this is the code that we had here from last week. And so I'm just going to make a backup copy before I start making any changes. I'm going to take this main number 2 actually, and I'm even going to make a backup copy of that. So this is now, let's just call this 2A, and 2A will be the code that we run. So I haven't changed anything yet. All I've done is copy and paste it, and we can see we have our moving rectangle. Fantastic. Right, inside my assets folder, I have put all those pictures that I want to use. So I'm going to start by using the P2 stand picture. So that's just a picture of my little alien figurine here, standing still to attention, waiting to do something. And I'm going to use that as my first sprite. So how can I draw that instead of my rectangle? So first thing, I'm going to come up to my games variables section and I am going to load that image. And since it is the standing still image, I might be really creative and call it player stand. The command to load it in Pygame is pygame.image.load, and then inside my parentheses I give it the folder and file location. So it is sitting here inside from the where I am working. It is inside an assets folder, and then it is p2stand.png. So assets p2 stand.png. And then the other thing I'm going to do is run the convert alpha function on that, which will allow the alpha layer to work, which is what will allow the transparency to work. So it'll blend into the background. So that loads the PNG file and plonks it into this player stand object variable for me. The other thing I'm going to do is, because I don't like the size of the file at the moment, is I'm going to resize it. So player stand, I'm going to replace whatever's in player stand with my resized version, so hence why I'm using the same name. And it's just pygame.transform.scale. Okay, and what is the object that I am wanting to rescale? It is player stand. And I am going to resize it to 50 pixels wide by 70 pixels high. Now obviously you need to come up with these numbers on your own, and they need to be numbers that will work proportionally for your image without it looking stretched. So I'm taking player stand, resizing it to 50 by 70 and saving it back, overwriting the contents of player stand. To then draw it instead of my rectangle is even easier. I am going to comment these two lines of code out. Don't need them really anymore. And I window.blitz. So whatever the window was that I created down here on my Pygame display asset mode, right, I'm using the same name here. Blit is a fancy game speak for draw this picture, basically. You can think of it like that. And I am going to draw player stand and then provide a set of X and Y coordinates, which I already happen to have as X and Y. So the X and Y coordinates for where I want the top left of my picture to go is going to be there. And now if I play it, look at that, I have myself a little alien who I move around the screen instead of a rectangle. Alright, so that's the stand motion alien. So that's part one. I have the sprite appearing. Part two, to replace this with a motion, with like a running animation effect, so that he looks like he's in motion. He's not just floating on air. So that later on, when I have a platform for him to walk on, he'll actually look like he's walking on it. So as you can probably guess, I need to load up my walking PNGs, and you can see here I've got walk 01 through to walk 11. Now I'm using the single frame PNGs rather than the GIF for reasons. Alright, so I might just put in here sprite for standing still, and let's put in another comment, sprites for moving right. And so, because if you take a look at these, it is the right, moving right motion that you can tell kind of he's looking off to the right a little. Alright, so let's just do that. Now, instead of having player right 01 and through to player right 9, I'm just going to use a list and load them all into one list. Because the idea is then I'm just going to, since we're running inside a while loop for the game, I'm going to let the loop take care of moving through the list. And so every time we're in a new frame, we're going to display a new picture from the list. It's actually quite elegant and simple, really, if you think about it. So Pygame image load assets p2 walk 01 png convert alpha, and I've got this through to from walk 1 through to walk 11, so I'm just going to make a bunch of these and change the file names to match. Yes, there are more elegant ways of coding this, but I'm trying to keep it fairly simple as well. So I'm trying to keep it relatively beginner friendly. although my very next line of code is about to probably change that a little bit, because I still need to do this scale effect thing. Rather than, I mean, I can just for loop through it and do it, but I'm going to actually use a list generator to do this. So resize, what I'm about to do here is resize all images in the list to 50 by 70 pixels. And if you're not familiar with this notation, you might just have to trust me that it works. Alright, so I'm going to set player right to a new list. What will be the contents of this list? It'll be the individual elements will be the result from the Pygame transform scale function, where I'm going to supply an image and I want it rescaled to 50/70. That image that I supply to that function is going to come from a for loop where I loop through every image inside the player right list. Alright, so what's happening here is for every image inside player right, perform this action on it, and then for all the results that creates, generate a list and save it into player right. It's quite a complex line of code, way beyond what you need for my course if you're in my GCSE course or anything like that. So you might just need to take it on faith for now. Okay, but if you want me to explain it to you later on, I can. If you're a student of mine, obviously. If you're just watching from the internet, then it might be tough luck and do some Googling. There's one other thing we're going to need to know is to which of these pictures are we displaying at any given moment in time. Alright, so we're going to need a variable of some kind to remember which frame from the list we last displayed. So I'm just going to call that player right frame, and I'm going to set it to 0. So how can I use that now, I hear you ask, and I'm glad you asked because I want to show it to you. I'm going to keep this player stand here. I'm not going to delete it. I'm just going to comment it out because we're going to need our alien to be able to stand still later on. So we're going to use that code later. But for now, we're just going to make the animation effect. But we're still going to use window blit. But this time, instead of stand, we're going to be using the player right, which, if you remember, is a list. So I need to tell it which image in that list, and we had that player right frame, which was there for that purpose, to keep track of which frame inside the list we are displaying. So from a list of images, give me one of them, so that's giving me an image. All right, so in that sense, it's the same as that. So then the next part is we just need to do this part here where we provide the coordinates. So that's exactly the same, x, y. The only other thing then we need to do is increment the value inside player right frame. So player right frame, we want to take it and add 1 to it. But once we hit the number of items inside the list, we then want to loop it back to 0. And I could say, okay, if player right frame is greater than or equal to the length of the list, which was player right, then set it back to 0. But that's just, I mean, that's 2 more lines of code than I need. So to do the same thing, I'm just going to use the modulus operator here. I'm going to say, well, I want the remainder if I divide it by the length of my player right list. And that's going to have the same effect. Trust me. Try both of them and you'll see that I'm hopefully right. If I play and run this, there is my walking to the right animation. Fantastic. I need to kind of be moving to the right a little slower so that it's a little more realistic. So maybe rather than 50 every frame, let's change the of the x values to 10 per frame. See if that makes it look a little better. Probably still a little fast, but you get the idea. Let's just make it 5. That's really cool. Okay, well, yeah, the down is still big. Now, how do I make it face left if I want to walk the other way? Because at the moment he's doing the moonwalk. We can't have that. Okay, so part 3, different animations for different actions. And then that will definitely do us for today. So we have the stand image, we have the moving right image. How can I do the moving left one? Well, I don't need separate walk PNGs. No one's going to go through the effort of making up 12 pictures or 11 pictures of moving in one direction and then make up another 11 moving in the exact same direction. Why don't I just load the original 11 and flip them? Why not? Okay, sounds good to me. Let's do it. Alright, so player left. Alright, I'm going to use my list generator again, so apologies for that. Alright, but Pygame transform. Alright, this is all stuff you are familiar with now. But instead of using scale, I'm going to use flip. Hey! It just so happens Pygame lets me do this, and I'm going to flip whatever image I'm provided. I'm going to flip it on the horizontal, but not the vertical. So that's what the true and the false mean. And I'm going to do that for every image that I'm provided, which comes from player right. And because it's already been resized in player right, I don't have to resize it again for player left. And so the only other thing I need to do now is have a player left frame counter as well and set that to 0. So let's just put in a comment here, create moving images by flipping the right facing images on the horizontal axis. Okay, so I've got my standing still image, which was here. I've got my code here for moving right. My code for moving left is basically copy and paste and rename the right bits that say right to left. How do I know which one I need to show when? Okay, so that's the last little bit to add here. We're going to need a variable that keeps track of what direction we are facing. So maintain our direction. So let's have a variable called direction. That sounds good. And we can start by standing still, because that's, when we're not holding down a key, we're standing still. So then down here, I can now uncomment this line that we had waiting for us. If my direction is stand, then I want to show that. Else, if my direction is right, then I'm going to do that. Else, if my direction is left, then I'm going to copy and paste those. Do my renaming. I want that to be a left. I want that to be a left. I want that to be left. And that to be left. And that to be left. Alright, so now I'm changing which of these I draw based upon the value of direction, but I haven't set direction anywhere. Nowhere have I told direction to change. So let's just quickly do that. How do I know when to change direction? Based upon my key presses. Alright, so if I'm pressing the A key, then I am moving to the left. If I'm pressing the D key, then I am moving to the right. Here's a little pro tip for you. If the sum of all the keys pressed is 0, then you are not pressing any key at all. There you go, a little new tip for you. So in that case, we're going to set the direction to stand. I haven't done anything for up and down yet, because we're going to want a jumping motion and a landing motion for those. So that's why I'm leaving those as they are. But let's just change those 50s so they don't quite jump so bad at the moment. And sub is not defined. What did this is sum, not sub. The sum of all of them. Add up all the values inside the keys pressed list. And if it's zeros across the whole thing, there is no key being pressed. So we're standing, we are moving to the right. Let's just come down a little. That looks cool. And let's try moving to the left. Look at that, yay! Move to the right, move to the left. Alrighty, I reckon that looks pretty cool. So, did have in here a single frame jump picture and a single frame duck, which I thought looked like a falling picture. So I might just quickly add those into it for jumping and falling. And they're basically, because they're just single frames, they kind of function like the standing still one. So I'll quickly post those in as well. Sprite for jump. Alright, and so I'll call that player jump. And then this video is getting way too long, so it's definitely going to be time to end it once this is done. I wonder what the YouTube analytics is going to tell me how long people persevered with the video. Once they hit this part, then we're like, oh, come on, that's just enough already. Land. Are you still watching? That's the real question. Or am I just talking to myself? And land. Alright, so here now I just need my, let's just put in direction. W is jump, and direction here is land. Okay, obviously we're going to have to replace this with some gravity later on, but you know, it'll work for this purpose just quickly to get the different images working. So jump, shiny is going to look like that, and then land is going to look like that. And let's see if I've done that correctly. No, what did I say? Because the image file is not called land, it is called duck. Run. Alrighty. So we are moving. Oh, there we go. We're ducking and we're jumping. Yay. Alright. And we have our left and we have our right motion. That's really cool. That's more than enough for this video. This is Mr. Ball and Garden signing out.